Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode, oh gosh, I've already forgotten, 18 of Syncing with ServiceNow. Becky, by the way, this is a one-take podcast. Whatever we get wrong, we fix it right then, and we don't go, and we just keep going. How are you? Guys, welcome. This is, what is today? It's June 5th, 2023. This is episode 18 of Syncing with ServiceNow. Excited to have Kristin McDonald with us, who's been on with us about 6, 7, 8 times now. Always a lot of fun. And Kristin brought a friend.
Yes.
Kristin, who did you bring with us today? And where's Fred?
Yep. Yep, we are missing Fred today, but we do have our special guest, Becky Whiten. Becky is actually my sister, and we are both senior solution architects with ServiceNow. So she's joining the XenTegra team. I'll let her do a quick intro. Yeah.
Hello,
Becky,
everyone.
welcome. Yeah. Tell us a little about yourself and how this happened.
Yeah.
Sure. So a long time ago, I got started with ServiceNow back prior to ServiceNow being even Aspen release. So I've been working with ServiceNow since about 2012.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I don't know this, but okay, what was the name of the first release, if it even had one? And what was the year of the first release?
Oh, great question.
When did it become relevant to the two of you? Okay, so 2012, Kristin, when did you start with ServiceNow?
So Becky actually pulled me into ServiceNow.
Oh,
we
that's
were
her
both
fault.
working on BMC Remedy at the time, and she's like, "Hey, you have to come see this new system. It's so cool. You're gonna love it."
So I had this weekend, I listened to a podcast about a lady in Canada that went from the mailroom to being a ServiceNow architect, and now she's or ServiceNow support person. And now she's ServiceNow architect. And then I was just interacting with a guy I just randomly met. He was putting a security system at my in-laws' house, and he was awesome. And I was like, "Man, what do you want to do with your life?" I want to get into IT. I want to get into enterprise IT. I'm like, "I got something for you. Check this out."
Absolutely.
Sounds like that's pretty common.
It is. It's yeah, ServiceNow is a great on-ramp for new people, new to technology, because you don't really have to know scripting to get started with ServiceNow. Scripting is there, and there are more advanced things that you can work your way into, but you really don't have to know that to begin on the platform. So it's actually a great on-ramp for new people to IT. Yep.
Yeah, I think the next
It is, and it covers, just to give you a little bit more onto that, it covers so many different areas. So people that are used to more HTML pieces or portal-like work, where they really like the UI UX look and feel, there's a lot of room for that particular area within ServiceNow, as well as just adding fields and working with data and data importing, and then there's the integration side. And so forth. So ServiceNow is so large and robust that it can do so many things. You don't necessarily, have to have all of that scripting knowledge at the beginning, but you can easily learn it and get into it and grow your level set to where you can easily mature and continue to grow with the tool as they continue to add new features and functionality within it.
Yeah, so a couple of things on that note. The guy I was talking to today, after I had a little brief conversation, what do you want to do? I introduced him concept of ServiceNow, and I said, "Well, and do you have any experience?" He goes, "Yeah, I host my own websites." I'm like, "Well, you're perfect for doing this. You're ahead of the curve."
Oh, absolutely.
I guess something else I heard at the conference a couple weeks ago, and maybe I heard repeated, is that ServiceNow, the code that they do use isn't their own proprietary stuff. It's based on Java language and things like that, which make it even more readily available for people who do want to get into the coding side of it to pick up.
Yep, absolutely. There are other platform as a service providers, but ServiceNow made, I think, the very wise decision to use JavaScript as their base language. So there are aspects of the platform that use other languages, like Becky mentioned, HTML, CSS, you've got Angular on the portal side, but the base platform uses almost entirely JavaScript. So it's really readily accessible to new developers because it's such a popular programming language. Yep.
So based on the way the workflows work and the drag and drop, and then if I picked up like the JavaScript for Dummies book, I'd be in a good spot.
Absolutely.
I think I see it on Becky's shelf back there. That's on. I'm just kidding. Okay. Well, glad to have you, Becky. All right. So since you're new, and we're going to make fun of Kristin for just a second, funniest story you can appropriately tell on a podcast with maybe hundreds of people that will listen to it at some point about Kristin.
Oh boy. I have so many. I grew up with her. I guess one of my funniest, memories of her when we grew up. So we both have 3 other sisters, and we used to like what we called meal day. It would be our meal day. And so Kristin would take it to the next level. So she would write out our menu, what we're going to have, what was for dessert, what was for drinking, sweet tea. Of course, we live in Texas. So sweet tea was it. And so forth. But she was very prim and proper and would make our little menus and sit at the table for us. And a lot of times we would get corrected at the table. She was a lot younger than all of us, but if we said, 2 times, she would try to tell us, well, you could say twice. So she liked to keep us all in line.
Kristin, here's what I'm going to do to keep our listeners coming back. I'm going to let you respond to that the next time Becky's on a podcast.
All righty. Sounds good.
And then you get to tell one on her. All right. So let's see. Let me share my screen here so we can talk about the topic. So Becky, we try to have fun in this. Fred's not here. We can make fun of him. If we want. Not here to defend himself. He took vacation, that's his fault. All right. So the blog that was brought by Kristin today, and I think Becky actually influenced it too, is New Employee Workflow Solutions Keep Workforces Safe. Kristin, is this the one you sent me for this podcast? Is this the one you sent me after we talked about doing an HR related one?
Yes, so that's the one for this one. And we did just want to talk about workplace service delivery in today's podcast. We've had a few clients actually expressed interest. We've done a couple demos for clients. So we thought it would be a viable topic for today. I know the blog post is a little bit old. There's not too much out on the blog for this specific topic, but Becky is our expert in the area, which is why she's joining us today. So yeah, this is the one for today.
So let me understand. We're going to talk about workplaces. Workplaces. Yeah. Workplaces or workspaces?
Both, but workplace.
Yes.
And we're going to go back in a time machine and be like during the pandemic a little bit, but super relevant because this concept is never going away. Like in our entire lifetime, there will never be the idea that the workplace doesn't need to be safer than it was prior to March 2020. True?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, Becky, you're the subject matter expert. Help us understand what they mean when at the intro here and some of the stats they're bringing up and how they talk about the pandemic and the virus.
Sure. So what they're saying here is in workplace solutions or service delivery, there are quite a few components of that application. And there is an area there called emergency response, and they have different applications into there. What was really neat, what I helped to deploy for a large federal client was around the emergency response and this and safe workplace. What that allowed them to do is if there were, they have employees all over the world, and if there was some type of an outbreak or something that happened, one of the places that I also implemented had a nuclear facility. And they had an issue at a reactor and they needed to quickly get a message out and get everyone out of that particular area. And so they used the application and it used Twilio as well. And it text messaged and emailed all of the people at a certain location to let them know that there was an issue, they needed to evacuate and so forth. What was really nice about this feature is a lot of times when you're told to leave a building, sometimes you might not have your phone with you. And of course, not your laptop. You're going to leave it at your desk and just get out. And the nice feature that the managers had within this was if they were, standing outside, like if they had to evacuate the building or their employee contacted them, they could easily mark that employee as being safe. And so this kept track of all of that information. So you would be able to kind of track and make sure all of your people, if you needed to follow up, or it also kind of rolled into some of the HR pieces. So if something happened to someone, then, HR could start checking on them and doing different things that they might need to do. So it's a really nice application and different ways that you can utilize it as well. And even in the pandemic, there were other pieces of that where, an employee may be sick, so you could do health screening. So there was a portal you could check into each day and say if you were well or you weren't well, or what your temperature was, to know whether or not you were going to come into the building today or not. If not, then, they would just mark that and kind of keep track of it and know that you were working from home that day.
I can't tell you how many people I've met along the way that were trying to come up with some type of application to do something like this. And I think what's so unique, and we kind of talked about a little bit ago, and I meant to bring it up then, is because ServiceNow is a platform that can bring forth applications relatively quickly but robustly, it makes it the perfect solution for this scenario. Kristin, would you agree?
Absolutely. In fact, during the whole pandemic situation, that was my thought when I saw this come out. I can't even remember how long it took them. It seemed like it was maybe 6 weeks or so. I forget the exact time frame, but it was incredibly rapid between the time the pandemic started and the time that ServiceNow came out with version 1 of some of these tool sets. It was very, very quick. I don't even think they waited for a full release. I don't know if you recall that, Becky, but I think they just posted it to the store. It was a very rapid release.
They did. And you're correct. And what was really nice is they kept adding new features to it. And so you could go out to the store, or I was part of the development team, so I kept getting the emails that there was a new release out there. So they kept either making new features or fixing a few particular areas and so forth. And so it seemed like every 2 weeks we were getting newer features into what the application could do. And they wanted feedback, which was really great. So we were one of the first ones to deploy it as well. And we got to work with the team somewhat at ServiceNow and talk to them and talk about some of the features that we would like to see into it. And they were really quick to turn different things around.
So this takes me back to the conversation I was having at the time. Let's say we have a customer, we'll call him Charlie. I'm gonna send Charlie this podcast, let him listen to it. We'll call him Charlie. And he was saying, let's write an app that's going to do this. And I was all for it. And then I brought it to some of our developer friends, and they were like, well, there's a lot of people doing this, maybe we shouldn't do it. But then now if I could go back and have that conversation with myself again, I think the response I would have was, yeah, I love the idea, but if it's not on top of some existing platform, like in this case, then it'll be this constant state of missing things with, a lot of uplift to get it done. Whereas since this is on top of a platform, it would make a lot of sense to get it done quicker and more robustly as the need evolves.
Absolutely. And it really speaks to the power of ServiceNow, because it gives you that baseline for building these types of apps quickly, and the data oftentimes is already there because you've already got your companies, your locations, your employees loaded into the system. So you're not even migrating data to kick it off. You've already got the data there. You've already got the supporting teams there for any workflow that's required or task management that's required. And you've got this just solid baseline to build on. Yeah. And
in the case of Charlie, they have ServiceNow. I don't know if they had it then at that very moment. So now it might have been a no-brainer and they would have solved it exactly this way. Plus, the app was already there. So Becky, I'm still struggling in the world of ServiceNow, figuring out what's a workflow and what's tied to it. But over the weekend, I was having a conversation around ServiceNow being a PaaS, and then the applications that get written for it could be either an integration or a SaaS. In the case of this one, is the workflow we're talking about here, or the module, the safe workplace? Is that the the foundation we're talking about?
So the actual, so what ServiceNow does is they do what's called a plugin, and it's to open up all of these different applications which have modules. So when you log in, based upon what your role might be, whether you're an employee or a manager or an administrator, you would see different applications or modules on the left-hand side when you log in for what you have access to be able to see. And so the workplace service delivery has a lot of different applications into it. It really started out with that emergency response, and now they've added in reservations. So a lot of things that happened within COVID brought around more things that the user or the customer were really asking for. You know, maybe they had buildings and they only allowed so many people to come in onto the different floors, or you were visiting another building and you needed to reserve that space or the conference room. So there's reservations, you could do, you know, hot seating and so forth as well. So it allowed for those things to happen, as well as different maintenance. So a lot for facilities went more underneath this particular area as well, because it really brought in more of the locations and the floor plans and the mapping of the buildings, emergency response for those buildings as well, different things that might need to happen and so forth. So it started out very small, and then now there's probably about 10 or 11, or maybe even more than that now, applications that are consumed within the workplace.
So, Kristin, I know you guys are having some conversations. So to get work, well, first of all, was it called workplace and now it's called safe workplace, or is the safe just kind of an adjective that we throw on? Is it really called safe workplace?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was that during the pandemic, or has it always been called safe workplace?
It's been called that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got safe workplace. What do I have to own in order to get access to that suite?
Workplace service delivery.
Mm-hmm.
Workplace. Okay. So workplace service delivery, that gives me safe workplace. And then the emergency response app, is that something that just gets bubbled up to me, or do I go out to the app store and find it there and own it as part of my license?
So see there here, like the emergency self-report and emergency outreach, that is all a part of that emergency response management.
Okay. So I just go out here and I get it from here, but I have the rights to it based on my licensing.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggle with all this because there's just so much, and I really haven't taken the time to learn. And part of that may be the fact I think they may have changed it end of last year, beginning of the year, and whatever I thought I learned, it was wasted. So I need to relearn, I guess, what I'm saying.
And there are often licensing changes with ServiceNow. They'll come out with their new licensing models, and the partners receive information about that. They try to stay generally within the scope of the application. So if an ITSM was a per user model, it typically stays a per user model. They don't often change the type of licensing, but a lot of times they'll change the features as they come out with new features. They may change the groupings of those, whether you have standard, pro, enterprise. So as consultants and partners with ServiceNow, we do have all of that information, and we can certainly advise customers on that. Yep.
So Twilio.
Yeah.
I see you're highlighting Twilio there.
Well, let me ask about, so Twilio is, we've been around Twilio forever here at XenTegra with automation and things. How does Twilio fit into this particular ServiceNow scenario? And well, hold on, let me say this. This one's been challenging me to come out with. So I get this as it relates to the pandemic, but man, you guys are both old enough to know what I'm getting ready to talk about. Imagine this in like a 9/11 world and how that could have changed the scenario and the outcomes in Manhattan, and even in DC, of what could have been different had you had some kind of systematic way to say, hopefully say, something's happened in another building, get out of yours the best you can, or and know that the only elevator shaft the only stairwell that's still available is the one on the southwest side. Imagine if we could have done that.
and
Absolutely.
blast it. You know,
Yep.
that's the thing. Blast it so fast.
Right. And I hate to bring that up, but it makes this
Well-
very applicable conversation.
We can't change the past, but we can change the future. So,
Yeah, that's Kristin, you probably know we had our Mad Mother Against Drunk Driving walk this weekend, and we were talking about getting involved with those guys, and what we as a company can do for nonprofits to enable them to have enterprise platforms that they don't even know exist and sure as heck can't implement.
yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of opportunity there to help and just improve things in general. Yep.
Or potentially worse, like one of the other nonprofits that we're talking to now, they think they want to build it from scratch, and like, guys, just put a platform in place so that the next 50 things you want to build don't have to be a start over every time.
Right.
You're only making the problem worse.
Mhm.
Oh, so Becky, Twilio, we've been around them forever and have a sense of what they can do. Tell us what Twilio is, what it did here, and where it fits into ServiceNow world. Going
Sure.
forward.
With ServiceNow and with the one that I implemented, you do have to have a subscription with Twilio so that you have a phone number. And what it did here was it massively sent out text. It can do email as well, but ServiceNow can as well. So we utilized it mainly for the SMS text messaging and for people to be able to respond to that. Whenever they responded to it, ServiceNow read that into, that piece back in and updated their record to let us know whether or not they were safe or if there was something else that they needed to let us know. And so that's how we utilized it as an integration piece, and also for it to send out the mass text that needed to. So ServiceNow knew which group of users based upon their location or their building and so forth that it could send to. So it would group those in and then just send out that type of text message.
Mhm.
So what I love about what you just said is two-way. It enabled two-way communication, which, we've lived long enough to be in a world where it was one way, and it was, just get it out there and hope people hear it, but they couldn't tell you in reverse what their scenario was.
Right.
Kristin, anything to add? I mean, sounds like this is something Becky was doing, and you were watching from a distance ish. What was your thoughts as you saw this unfolding?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, my personal response was just amazement at the speed of the whole rollout. It's just, you don't every day see a full application built and available within a matter of weeks. And that was quite substantial to me. Now, a lot of the features they had already built on. So again, the foundational pieces were there. Facilities management was already in place in the platform. The Twilio integration was actually already existing in the platform, but in use in a different way. So they were using that, for example, with CSM and ITSM to notify agents via SMS texting or have virtual conversations, support type conversations. So just because there are so many integrations and so many features already on the platform, you can not just build from scratch, but also leverage a lot of those existing pieces to rebuild things. So, yeah.
So Becky, I had to assume there was an element of this that was, every day new requests were coming in. How iterative was the development of this, and how did having that platform enable that?
Mm-hmm.
It was. There were a lot of different requests that did come in. Again, whenever I did deploy this with a large federal customer, as I mentioned, we were one of the first ones to get it going. And so it was really nice because we also got to work hand in hand with ServiceNow's development team. And so we were pushing ideas to them as well, and they wanted that. They wanted to hear what the client that was utilizing it up front needed as well. So that was nice. We did some customization as well. But at the very beginning, we really kind of sat back a little bit. We did a few things within workflow, basically we need to route this to go somewhere to let somebody know something, and as well as, the manager to be able to do certain things for their employees. And so that piece of it, but we also work, like I said, hand in hand with ServiceNow to help them understand how it would better other clients' within it, because as I did mention, we were one of the very first customers to start using it, and they were rolling out updates and releases literally every 2 weeks to us. So it was really nice. They were quick, very, very quick onto it.
The paragraph I have highlighted here, and that I didn't really hit me, and I should have been the first person that thought about this, is how this impacts such a distributed workforce today. Only makes this more necessary, doesn't it?
It does.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm still struggling with the distributed workforce thing, even though I'm a proponent of it and live it every day. How you manage it, how you make sure it's being productive as it should or could be. I think platforms are the only answer for that. Becky, I missed it earlier when you said this was a federal related customer. Other than the improving the knowledge of the user, the employee, and their workplace related, was there any other intangibles that came out of this implementation for the business?
I'm sorry.
Was there anything else besides, the obvious is pointing out of here that, maybe it's not highlighted in the blog. Was there anything else that came out of this implementation that was unexpected as a result of putting this in place?
I think what happened is that more and more applications now are developed within this module or within this plugin now, such as the space piece of it, the reservations, not everybody going into the office anymore. And so, or when they did, they needed to acquire a space because a lot of the customers would, gave up some of their space because they found out that a lot of people could do their job at home or remotely versus having to be right into the office. And then there would be reasons why they might need to go into the office. So they were able to build the reservation management piece where you could go and book a room or a conference room. So that became something that that was very nice. Another piece of it, piece of this is also called the visitor management. So you could check people in and out of the building, which was really good because might be visitors in, and if they just signed a log, you don't know how many people are in that building, and then you have an issue with the building. How are you going to get to notify them or be able to know that they were truly in your building at that particular time? So that was another piece or nice feature that got added into the application.
So that's interesting for me because I'm old enough to remember pre 9/11 when you just pretty much walked into a building, you may or may not sign the visitor log. And then after 9/11, there was a whole lot of, you got to sign this, you got to prove who you are, all this stuff happened. And that kind of, some places it kind of diminished a little bit, and most places it didn't. And then you had the pandemic kick in. So are you saying that the what I got on the screen here, like workplace reservation management, that came around after the safe workplace emergency response stuff did?
It did. So this was more reserving different seats, also being able to reserve a conference room. And you can also map so where different people into the organization sit. So you can see all of that. There's a mapping piece for this. It's actually it's another piece but it relates back to reservations, but it's called space mapping. And so, so here you can see all of those things. You can also see where you can map out your whole floor plan, where the elevators are, where the bathrooms are, where the cafeteria is at, and so forth. So there's a lot of different things that came about after the reservation piece so that people could actually visually be able to see. So there's, now another piece of that called space mapping. Yeah.
So what I'm holding up in my webcam here is our new office layout for the office we moved into July 1st. I need that for this.
There you go.
And it's good to have that now. It'll be good to have that in the future. As it relates to things like contact tracing, it could only be more beneficial to have this type of technology in place, and knowing that you got a platform that you don't know what's coming next, that you could easily create something on top of, is super empowering.
Right. And then this also helped them, with facilities. So ServiceNow had a section called work orders that you could do some facility management in, but this really brought into more of, you're going to see there's also an area called workplace case management as well. And so that's a lot where the facilities are in. So maybe a conference room might need a new TV, or something is broken inside of there, and so forth. So when you're doing the reservation management, it can work in conjunction with the cases and be able to say, okay, while I was in here, the video projector broke, or somebody spilled their coffee all over, the plugs, and now they, don't work anymore, and so forth. So you can kind of put in these different ticket types as well, and then we can do workflow behind that to route it to the right group to be able to respond and go and fix those items, or order new items that might need to be into those particular areas.
Yeah. So I've got one for you guys. Just wild guess here. Were either one of you guys ever a teacher, or somebody in your immediate family, an elementary school teacher? Neither one?
Oh, wait, Dana?
What's that?
Oh, Dana. My daughter-in-law.
Okay. Well, that's by marriage. You guys have the personalities of school teachers, and I'm married to one, so I can tell you that. And like the patience and the way you would address people, pleasantly, but yet with a point. Anyway, my point in that whole comment was, I was hoping one of you say yes, this will never happen. But this seems like the perfect approach. School teachers spend a lot of time trying to organize their classroom and have kids sit beside kids that don't distract each other. And maybe one's got a hearing issue and one's got a vision issue. This would be like the perfect way to solve that. I don't know if we'd make any money, but it would be a heck of a good story.
Maybe for that nonprofit.
Yeah. So Becky, what's this mapped in thing?
So mapped in is a new type of integration piece that ServiceNow is utilizing. It will take AutoCAD files or different type of image files and read them in. So that floor plan you were holding up, if you had that in an AutoCAD file, we would be able to bring that file in. It would map it. There's a little bit of configuration we would have to do, but at least your floor plan then would be in, and then we could start setting the people or saying what location that they're sitting in. So as you held up that map, we could say, okay, well, Andy sits in room 101. And so we could go and start tying those users to where they sit into the building and so forth. So
could you also put in some characteristics of Andy, like he does podcasts and he gets really loud sometimes?
Well, you could put that in the notes.
but really, I mean, it's a platform. There's nothing that says you couldn't do that.
That is correct.
Absolutely. And we do have user profiles in the platform. So you do have pictures of their smiling faces if those are uploaded. And yep.
That's awesome. Kristin, anything to add to the mapped in piece?
I don't think so. I think Becky covered it well. Yeah.
So Becky, we're kind of at the end here. It's a great conversation. What would you want someone to take away from the workplace capabilities within ServiceNow, just in general?
I would say it's something that I think nearly all companies could utilize in some manner. I think a lot of times it's overlooked, mainly because it's not necessarily marketed as much. It came about because of a bad situation but some of the things that it does, we're not going to get away from. It brought us some neat features for ServiceNow that ServiceNow can do. And I think that more and more it's going to continue to grow. And we always have, if we're a company, we normally have a building, we have employees, we're going to have moves that need to occur. We may need to reconfigure the floors and so forth. And why not keep it into your same application that you're running all of your other applications in or tools in? So, which is a really nice feature. A lot of times that is an area that's left out. They usually have to work off of spreadsheets. And if this particular person or that spreadsheet goes away, then they've lost all of that. Somebody's got to go and figure all of the floor plan out again or update it. And why not just keep it in the tool? It's very easy to say, I moved from room 101 to 102 or 105, or I went to the 5th floor, and be able to keep track of all of that information.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm going to tweak something you said, but you meant it. I know what you meant in the application, really in the platform. Once we get it on the platform.
Yes.
I'm trying to decide if I want to use the word on or in. And the reason I'm doing this is because I have this conversation with people all the time now, and they're bringing up all these challenges. Like, look, if you could just get that and that and that into a platform, then what you do with it is limitless afterwards. That's really what this whole ServiceNow platform thing's about.
Mhm.
Kristin, are you having to bring this up to people, or like Becky hit it on the head? Who needs this? Well, anybody who has a building. Well, guess who has a building? Almost everybody has at least a building. Are you bringing this up to people, or are people bringing it up to us saying, hey, what can I do about this?
Our customers are actually bringing it to us, which is why we wanted to cover it today and make sure that more people were able to hear about it. As Becky mentioned, it's not as widely marketed as some of the other applications on the platform. So we just wanted to get this out there, get some visibility to it, let people know it's available. Yeah.
You know, that whole marketing thing is something I'm kind of most excited about with ServiceNow, because they've got a lot of good stuff on their platform. And
Mhm.
maybe it's too much to market, or maybe just marketing is not their thing, but that's what we do. And marketing it and then executing on it, I mean, that's actually really exciting for us to be able to fill that gap on both ends, on the front and back side. And that's part of what's making us a unique partner for them.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Becky, welcome to the podcast. You're welcome to all of them, but love to have you as much as it makes sense.
Thank you.
Definitely got to have you back on one soon, so Kristin can tell us something funny about you.
Oh, great.
And she's got like maybe a week or more to think about it. Think about that.
I'm in trouble.
Oh,
I'm sure she'll be nice about it.
yes, absolutely. And I think our next topic is going to be HR. So I think we're going to have the same crew back on. Yep.
That'd be great.
Yep.
That's well, okay. So what customers of ours, what potential customers of ours need an HR talking to around ServiceNow? Probably a pretty high percentage.
Everybody's got HR.
I mean, in my experience, you get up to about 70 employees, you got to implement some form of HR, and there's a lot of companies out there with 70 or more employees.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I would love maybe to throw that one into the mix as one of our managed platforms at some point, because it's so relevant, but I could probably argue that about everything ServiceNow has.
Mhm.
Yeah. Becky, Kristin, thanks for the time.
All right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.